Hello and welcome back. You're watching World News coming to you live from Warsaw, Poland, and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. French President Emmanuel Macron is visiting Poland on Thursday. Macron is set to hold meetings with his Polish counterpart Andrzej Duda and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Our correspondent Aaron Daman is on the ground. So hello, Aaron. What's the agenda for today's meetings?
Good morning, Claudia. Well, we are here at the Chancellery of the Prime Minister, where very soon Prime Minister Donald Tusk and French President, Emmanuel Macron, will be taking the stage behind me. And of course, this comes as these two try and play peace brokers in the region as America looks to put the squeeze on Europe around what's happening in Ukraine. First, we had Mr. Macron playing diplomat in Paris over the weekend. Even as his own government is collapsing around him, he managed to get Volodymyr Zelenskyy, Donald Trump and himself in the same room. And then we had Donald Tusk talking about peace talks potentially starting as soon as this winter. And that comes as Poland gets ready to ascend to the EU Council presidency in January. Look, there is no guessing what will be on the agenda today. First of all, Macron will surely run Tusk through exactly what took place on the weekend in that meeting with Trump, Zelenskyy and himself. And we also understand, we've been told from an EU diplomatic source here at TVP World, that a potential peacekeeping force, a peacekeeping mission of sorts, will be part of the discussions as well. That would be a peacekeeping force going into Ukraine, but exactly what that looks like, how many people would be involved, these are all open questions. And then Polish President Andrzej Duda, as you mentioned, will also sit down with Mr. Macron. And of course, Claudia, at a time of such uncertainty, these exercises of diplomacy are more important than ever.
Thank you so much. Please keep us updated as the meetings begin. That was our chief political correspondent, Aaron Daman, coming from central Warsaw. The Polish foreign minister is traveling to Berlin on Thursday to attend a meeting of the heads of diplomacy of the European Union's Big Five. Radosław Sikorski will meet with his German, French, Italian and Spanish counterparts in Berlin. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy and EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Kaja Kallas will also attend the meeting. The officials are expected to hold talks on pressing issues for European security. A previous meeting between the heads of diplomacy of these countries and the EU took place in Warsaw in mid-November. The EU Justice and Home Affairs Council meets today in Brussels with ministers from all member states expected to discuss Schengen and asylum issues. For more, we go to our European Affairs correspondent, Sasha Farbach, who has the latest details.
Now, as interior ministers and justice ministers meet in Brussels over the next 2 days, many things on the agenda. Schengen is one of the main points here. That is something positive moving forward for the full entry of Romania and Bulgaria into the Schengen zone. Now, they've only had partial access, and there was a veto there by Austria. Now, since March, only flights had access without Schengen, but now this will now be extended into land borders from the 1st of January in 2025. And the Romanians were confident about this. And the minister, when he arrived here from Romania, had good things to say.
Romania is fully prepared to enter the Schengen area. Romania will be a strong partner for Schengen. We will strengthen the Schengen area. Our border protections are among the first in Europe, and we are ready to continue as a loyal and solid partner of Schengen area. We worked very hard to be here in this moment, and we will continue to work with the Commission and with the Member States to consolidate our position.
Also on the agenda is the Migration Asylum Pact. Now, this is something that's been in the works for a while. It's now due to be pushed and fully implemented to 2026 into all member states. This is going to be on the agenda, taking stock of migration, asylum, what to do now, especially in the case of Syria and those asylum applications that have been frozen, especially by countries in Germany and also Poland, given the massive geopolitical changes of the fall of the Bashar regime in Syria. And there's much else on the agenda as well, including looking at an entry system for non-EU nationals. Well, that has already raised concerns with human rights groups, and that will be on the agenda. That's the latest from Brussels. Sasha Farbach for TVP World.
President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on Wednesday night called for a united European stance on ending the war in Ukraine. During his nightly address, Zelenskyy said Europe's leaders must avoid efforts that showed a fractured position.
I have just spoken with the Prime Minister of Spain about our joint efforts in Europe to achieve unity that can bring us closer to peace. I'm grateful to Spain for its support, especially in strengthening our air defence. We will continue our work this week and next to make European positions stronger and help restore security to Ukraine and all of Europe. Coordination and joint efforts always yield results. This is what Europe needs right now, not isolated efforts contrary to everyone else on the continent. Achieving reliable peace is a challenging task, and we must be able to bear this weight.
Austria will terminate its contract with the Russian state-owned energy company Gazprom. The move to cut Vienna's dependence on Moscow was announced by the country's Chancellor, Karl Nehammer.
In a statement published on X, Nehammer said that Russia wanted to use energy as a weapon against Austria. As Gazprom did not obey the terms of the agreement, OMV, the country's biggest oil, gas and petrochemical company, voided the contract, which was supposed to expire in 2040. Nehammer also added that Austria's energy supply is secure and that the country would not allow itself to be blackmailed by Russia. The decision to sever the contract was also confirmed on OMV's official website.
Georgia's pro-European demonstrators took to the streets for a 14th consecutive night on Wednesday as international pressure mounts on the Georgian government. Recently, the French President Emmanuel Macron urged authorities in Tbilisi to release protesters he claimed were arrested arbitrarily. Macron's demand came during a telephone call with the ruling Georgian Dream Party's honorary chairman and billionaire Bidina Ivanishvili. Protesters in the streets of the Georgian capital allege that it's Ivanishvili who, despite holding no official post, is pulling the strings of power. Mass protests gripped the Black Sea country after the government announced its intention to pause EU accession talks back in November. In response, police have used tear gas and water cannons to disperse the crowds, but have so far failed to dissuade the public. Arrests are also common, with more than 400 people already detained by the Georgian riot police. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to his inauguration ceremony, CBS News reports. The invitation was extended early last month, but it is not clear if it has been accepted.
Xi Jinping's attendance in Washington will be unprecedented for a leader of China, the United States' major geopolitical rival. It marks a departure from Trump's position on China when it comes to nominating his secretaries. Among the so-called China hawks named to key positions is Senator Marco Rubio, who will lead the Department of State. Moreover, Trump has announced a series of regulations directly impacting US-Chinese relations. Among them is an additional 10% tariff on all imports from China. It is still a lower percentage than what was announced during the presidential campaign, when Donald Trump threatened tariffs of more than 60%.
Our country and restore its promise.
Director of the FBI Christopher Wray announced his decision to step down from his post on Wednesday. The resignation will be effective in January before Donald Trump assumes office. During a town hall address, Wray said that until then, he will focus on the day-to-day operations of the agency. Wray still has 3 years left in a 10-year term.
After weeks of careful thought, I've decided the right thing for the Bureau is for me to serve until the end of the current administration in January and then step down. My goal is to keep the focus on our mission, on the indispensable work each of you is doing every single day. And in my view, this is the best way to avoid dragging the Bureau deeper into the fray while reinforcing the values and principles that are so important in how we do our work.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken departed for Jordan and Turkey late on Wednesday. During his stay, he's expected to hold talks on Syria and the Gaza Strip.
Blinken is aiming to ensure a smooth transition of power in Syria following the overthrow of the regime of Bashar al-Assad. Blinken is expected to reiterate the United States' support for an inclusive, Syrian-led transition to an accountable and representative government. The U.S. Secretary of State is also reportedly interested in helping advance talks on a ceasefire deal in Gaza.
Of South Korea's ruling party has said that President Yoon Suk-yeol should be suspended immediately. During a brief press conference, he said that if President Yoon has no intention of stepping down early, he should be suspended from his duties.
The president should be immediately excluded from state administration, including the military leadership, as long as it has been confirmed that the president has no intention of stepping down early. An immediate suspension of his duties is required. At the next vote, our party members should attend the meeting and participate in the vote according to their conviction and conscience.
표결에 참여해야 합니다.
Spain, Portugal and Morocco, these three countries have been chosen to host the 2030 World Cup. During the announcement ceremony, FIFA also unveiled the host country of the 2034 Cup, Saudi Arabia.
FIFA World Cup 2030.
The first three matches of the 2030 World Cup will be held in Uruguay, Argentina and Paraguay to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the World Cup. Uruguay was the first World Cup host in the history of the tournament in 1930. The next 100 matches will be played in Europe and Africa. Organising the tournament on three continents is already sparking controversy over the event's impact on the climate. Moreover, the lone host country of the 2034 Cup, Saudi Arabia, is also under fire for its long history of human rights violations.
And now we are going to take a moment to show you the live coverage of one of the most important events which are going to take place in the Polish capital of Warsaw today. As you can see on your screens, this is the entrance to the office of the Prime Minister of the Republic of Poland. We know that French President Emmanuel Macron is going to as a first point on his agenda, he's going to meet Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. And their conversation is going to focus on a number of issues, mainly the one of war in Ukraine, defense, but also the peacekeeping force. As we reported earlier in days leading to the meetings taking place, because let us not forget that at 12, Mr. Macron is going to meet with Mr. Tusk, and after that at 2 p.m. he's going to make his way to the presidential palace in Warsaw in order to meet with his Polish counterpart Andrzej Duda. There is going to be definitely a talk of a peacekeeping force, which would be possible after the war in Ukraine is over. And obviously, one of the biggest takeaways after these meetings will possibly be the feedback on the meeting which took place earlier over the weekend in Paris. The meeting of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy with French President Emmanuel Macron, which took place after the Notre Dame Cathedral reopening ceremony and mass over the weekend. We've been asking our experts here on TVP World a lot on this subject, and as you can see on your screens, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is coming out of the building in order to greet French President Emmanuel Macron. As you can hear in the background, there are sounds of sirens, and everyone is waiting for the French Prime Minister arrive for the first meeting of the day. This is quite a particular time for the French President to be visiting Poland right after the meeting of two other presidents which took place in Paris earlier over the weekend. But also within the next 24 hours, French President will have to appoint the new head of his government after Prime Minister Michel Barnier's cabinet was called off after a vote of no confidence. And as you can see, people are readying outside of the building of the office of the Prime Minister of the Republic of Poland, which is located only steps away from the Łazienki Royal Park, where another important meeting is going to take place, a ministerial meeting of. And as you can see, coming through the door this very moment is Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, joined by French President Emmanuel Macron. The two gentlemen are going to discuss some of the most important subjects, especially in regards to the ongoing war in Ukraine and the future of potential peace talks, something that we've covered on TVP World yesterday, something that we spoke about in our services this morning. What is the future of Ukraine? Are we moving any closer to a potential peace talks between Ukraine and Russia? And what is going to be Poland's role in those talks, especially considering that from January 1st, 2025, Poland is taking over the presidency over the EU Council. The two gentlemen are going to now head onto their official meeting. And we will be bringing you more details on the meetings that will be taking place throughout the day between Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Polish President Andrzej Duda. Thank you so much for joining us. This would be all the latest news for now here on World News, but please do stay tuned as we will be bringing you more updates on the situation very soon.